Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and I want to review the new Dune trailer, which I am very excited for this movie because I think it has the potential to be an awesome science fiction movie. But I am also a little bit worried because it seems to lack some of the elements which I found really good in the old movie, in the 1984 movie, even though I'm not sure I would even call that a good movie because it had so many problems, but it also have those kind of unique, bizarre things in it, all kinds of interesting designs, all kinds of interesting visuals, and that made that movie very unique and interesting despite it being kind of boring, and in some places the execution of the movie wasn't that good. The special effects back then I think were not good enough to show properly the kind of ideas that it had. And later, I think in the early 2000s, there was also a mini series on TV about the same story, but it also wasn't done that well. I think it was over relying on CGI, and the CGI wasn't that good, and so that was even worse in my opinion. It was barely watchable. And I also have to admit, I never actually read the original book, and so I can't really judge which version of the story is closer to the book. I also remember the first strategy game I ever played on a computer, and it was based on Dune. It had three armies that you can pick from, and I think the Harkonnens were my favorite. And you had those worms in the desert, and you had to evade them, otherwise they would swallow up your tanks. And every one of the three races had its own kind of unique weapons and stuff. So I remember that was the first strategy game I ever played, and that probably was before I even saw that movie, the first movie, which I saw once on TV. And one of my problems with that movie was that, first of all, it was kind of too slow. And I was a kid back then, so for me it was kind of boring. All the political stuff and all of that was really boring for me, and the pacing was really slow. And also, the special effects just weren't good enough to show the ideas they wanted to show us. And so, for example, they had the shield practice, but it looks kind of terrible. But at least it looked very unique, and it's something we didn't see before in any other movie. And in the new trailer, I actually don't really like how it looks. It just looks like, the shields in Star Trek, and it doesn't have any kind of unique look. There's nothing original in it nowadays. And I think with today's special effects, you can do something better, something that would look more unique and interesting, and maybe with a touch of reference to that old look of the shield practice and all of that. And also, what I do like in the new trailer is that apparently they're showing us that a lot of people will use that throughout the movie. And in the original movie in 1984, it was only that one scene, and then we never see or hear anything about personal shields in the rest of the movie. And in the new trailer, apparently everybody are going to be using that, and also we see some soldiers who are floating, so I guess those are the Harkonnens. And in that old movie, we only saw that main bad guy who kept floating around, so I guess he had some kind of anti-gravity technology or whatever, and yet no one else used that. And in the new movie, apparently, we're going to see that a lot of people use the same kind of technology throughout the movie, and that makes sense, and that also will make the movie more interesting. And also, it will explain an element in Dune which kind of annoyed me originally, because I remember in the old movie I kept thinking, how come they are an advanced spacefaring civilization and yet they have to fight with swords and knives? And so it just didn't make much sense. However, with the idea of the personal shields, that can explain it. If everybody carries these personal shields, then they can say that it protects everyone from any kind of projectiles or energy weapons, and the only way to defeat your enemy would be to come close to him with an actual bladed weapon, because that can pass through the shield. And so this would explain why the technology is both advanced and primitive at the same time. How come they still have to fight with armies with swords and knives and all of that if they're so advanced? And so if they use it correctly, it can explain all those seemingly illogical things, and have all the cool sword fights and all that kind of stuff at the same time of all of this being science fiction in the far future and all of that. So if they do it correctly, if they pull it off, this might be a great movie. And my only complaint is that we don't really see any interesting or creepy designs and creatures and costumes and all that kind of stuff, which I did love in the 1984 movie. That's one of its redeeming qualities, that it has a very interesting look. And anyone who saw that movie probably knows what I mean. Like, for example, that creature that distorted space-time to allow faster than light travel. That was very creepy looking and interesting. And all those costumes and all the strange prosthetics. And for example, there was that guy who looked kind of like a Borg, with tubes going into his head and stuff like that, which maybe even inspired the look of the Borg later in TNG, which came out later. and all the creepy stuff with the Harkonnens and all of that. We do see a little bit of that in this trailer, but it doesn't seem to be as crazy as it was in the 84 version. So that's the only disappointing thing so far based on the trailer. Maybe those things will be in the actual movie, maybe they're keeping it secret and didn't show any of that in the trailer, but that's the only kind of thing that's disappointing me, because again, with today's technology and today's special effects, they could show us so much creepy stuff much better than how it was before, and yet so far we don't really see it. Everything looks kind of normal, and that's disappointing to me because those are the things I loved in that older movie. And as for the worms, that's also something that movie probably is the most famous for, and that is something that was well done in that movie. Despite its old special effects, it still looks good because it was all done with models and puppets and practical effects, which still look pretty decent. Of course, there are various shots which don't look that well with all the blue screen and stuff like that, but overall it still works. And in the new trailer, again, maybe they're just keeping it secret, maybe they don't show all the best shots, but what they showed in the trailer is kind of okay. I don't have any direct complaints, but it just doesn't look that much better from that old movie. And also the design of the worm itself, again, I say I didn't read the book, so I don't know what's closer to the book, but I kind of like the old design better, which showed actual teeth inside the worm, and yet in the new footage it looks more like hair and not teeth inside of the worm, and so it kind of looks less threatening in my opinion. Like, it doesn't look like something that would chew you up, it looks like something that would softly pull you in, which maybe is still scary, but it just doesn't look as intimidating for a monster as the older version looked like, in my opinion. So there are things in this trailer which I find a little bit disappointing. I hope the movie will surprise me in a good way. Maybe it will have a lot of interesting stuff which we never saw before. I hope so. Otherwise, if it's just okay, otherwise if everything just looks normal and it doesn't have that element which I loved in 84 version, then maybe I'll even say that movie was better despite it being kind of boring and dated in a lot of ways. But at least it had all those cool moments and all that creepy stuff and all kinds of artistic designs and unique things which we never saw before. So I hope this new movie will also have things like that. And I don't want to see the exact same things we saw in the 84 version, even though if we do see stuff like that, that will be a nice reference. But I also want to see new things which were not in that movie either. I want to see brand new designs, brand new artistic ideas which we never saw before. Only then I will say this is great. So those are my hopes for this movie. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.